What's up everyone, how's it going? It's Simon here from CD Revival, and today I'm going to do something a little bit different, something away from the aforementioned schedule, something I've been thinking about doing for a little while actually, and it's basically the best track from every Iron Maiden album. So I'll be going through all the Iron Maiden albums, who are one of my favourite bands, and I'll tell you what the best track is on each album. Well, my favourite track anyway, which pretty much will be the same thing, but so I'll say that, and you can then argue the toss and disagree or agree with me in the comments, and we'll have a heated discussion and, you know, all the rest of it like happens on YouTube. So enjoy, but just a bit of fun anyway. So you say one of my favourite bands, so we thought we'd go through. Some of them are going to be easier to say than others, so we'll do this on the fly. It's not something that I've like got written down and I've decided this, that, the other, although some of them I think are going to be fairly obvious. So anyway, start off with the first album, obviously just called Iron Maiden. This one, fairly straightforward. It's got some good tracks on here, things like Prowler, Remember Tomorrow. But for me, best track on this album, by a country mile to be brutally honest with you, and one of their best tracks in general, is Phantom of the Opera. Recently covered by Ghost on their Phantomime EP, which they did a reasonable job of it, to be fair, but not as good as the original. So yeah, Iron Maiden, best track, Phantom of the Opera, by a long way. So there are some other good tracks. Sanctuary's on this reissue version as well, that's a really good track, but for me, best track on here, Phantom of the Opera, their first real sort of epic song that they did, and yeah, multiple different parts, just an absolutely blinding track. So that is that one. That was easy enough. Second album, Killers. Trickier on this one. What have we got on here? I mean, Wrathchild's definitely in with a shout. Murders in the Rue Morgue, that's definitely in with a shout. Title track, Killers, that's definitely up there as well. So probably out of those three, I would say the best. And I think I probably would say Wrathchild is the best track, my favourite track anyway, on here, especially going from the Ides of March into Wrathchild. If you put them together as one track, then that's well head and shoulders above the others. Probably Murders in the Rue Morgue probably runs it close, but yeah, Wrathchild on the second album, Killers, for me, best track. It's close. Third album, Number of the Beast, classic album. This was where they made it really big, and once again, some good stuff on here. To me, it's between the title track, Number of the Beast, which was the first track that I really heard of Maiden and sort of got me into the band, to be brutally honest with you, and obviously Hallowed Be Thy Name, which is a classic track and, you know, one of their best tracks of all time. So even though the title track is a classic track as well, and definitely not to be slept on, Hallowed Be Thy Name definitely will take the top spot on this album. Superb track, once again, multi-parts, builds and builds and builds. They play it all the time live, but they do with Number of the Beast as well. But yeah, those two tracks I think are head and shoulders above the others. There's a few slightly shaky ones on here, but that's for another video. Maybe I will do a worst track on every Iron Maiden album video in the future. Fourth album, Peace of Mind. I think this was number 2 in my ranking. Still stays that position in my ranking. It's an excellent album. I might redo, because my Iron Maiden ranking was one of the first video rankings that I did. I think that might have changed around a little bit in the year or so since I've done it. So, and also my video making, it's open for debate, but I think it's probably got a little bit better as well since then. So yeah, may well do a remastered, rejigged version of that. But anyway, for this purposes of this video, best track on here, the first 3 tracks are all stunning. Where Eagles Dare, Revelations and Flight of Icarus. The Trooper is a classic track, but for me that's not in the running. It's between the first 2 really for me, and I think even though I love Revelations and I do love Flight of Icarus as well, I think Where Eagles Dare is one of the best album openers of all time, and for me it's a track they should play live and probably open with more often than not. But yeah, Where Eagles There for me is the best track on this album, my favourite track. Superb gallop. Yeah, just a brilliant, brilliant track. So Where Eagles There for me. On Peace of Mind. Power Slave, my favourite Iron Maiden album, still to this day. Loads of really good stuff on here. Obviously you've got Aces High, you've got 2 Minutes to Midnight, and you've got the title track Power Slave, which for me is the closest to the #1 spot, but the #1 spot for me has got to be, and always will be, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, which is probably my favourite Maiden track of all time. So the title track is superb and does run it close, but for me, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner is the pinnacle of their output, if you like. So yeah, best album, best song on it. Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner is yeah, a little bit of a no-brainer. Can't really be touched on that one. So that's my favourite one on there. Next album, Somewhere in Time. Another album that was quite high in my ranking. Don't know if it would stay as high as I put it, but it's still a superb album. This one's a bit faded. This is the original version. So yeah, some good stuff on here. Wasted Years is an excellent track, as is Heaven Can Wait. But I think Alexander the Great, which they've started to play live for the first time on their most recent tour, I think that for me is an underrated maybe, but yes, for me it's the best track on the album. Excellent, excellent stuff. It's yeah, a bit of an epic and a bit of a, well, not forgotten gem, but yeah, definitely for me on a really strong album. Alexander the Great, for me, best track on the album. So, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son next, which I did a little bit dirty in my ranking, I think. And I think it'd probably feature a little bit higher next time around. Yeah, I've been listening to this quite a bit recently, actually. And it's, even though it's obviously old and I've listened to it tons, I got a new appreciation for it a bit. Some of the tracks that I didn't necessarily like so much, but yeah, so Moonchild, Infinite Dreams, they're stunning tracks, but for me the best track on it is the title track, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, which is once again probably in my top 10 Maiden tracks of all time, and that is going to be the pinnacle of this album for me, although probably Infinite Dreams runs it pretty close, but title track Seventh Son of a Seventh Son is for me the best track on this album. Let me know if you agree or disagree. No Prayer for the Dying next. Didn't like this when it first came out. Do enjoy it now. It's a bit more of a sort of throwback to the sort of Number of the Beast era, where there's shorter tracks on it, and there's some good stuff on here as well, and some stuff that I don't necessarily like so much. I was listening to this maybe yesterday, and the title track once again, and maybe Mother Russia are probably my two favourites, and I think the title track once again is probably the best, is probably my favourite on here. So No Prayer for the Dying on No Prayer for the Dying is the best track on this album. Next up we have Fear of the Dark, which is one of my least favourite Maiden albums. It's got some good stuff on here. It's a tricky one, this one. It's got some good stuff, but it's got some, it's kind of, Be Quick or Be Dead I really like. The title track is good. Fear is the Key. That's not bad either. I'm going to go for Be Quick or Be Dead on this one, even though the title track is great, and the Be Quick or Be Dead is like a fast, punchy, I think it hits the spot, to be honest with you. It's another really good opener, so I'm going to go for Be Quick or Be Dead on this album. Probably a lot of people will disagree with that one, and go for the title track, and if you do, it's pretty close between the two, but I've gone for Be Quick or Be Dead. That is my choice. X Factor. First album with Blaze Bayley. Fairly simple choice on this one. although Man on the Edge I think is really cool. It's going to be Sign of the Cross for me, first track on here. It's a good opener. It's fairly instrumental, to be honest with you. There's not loads and loads of vocals on it, which I like Blaze, don't get me wrong, but I think it does, yeah, help. So yeah, Sign of the Cross on the X Factor, best track by a long way really, to be honest with you. I say Man on the Edge is decent. I do enjoy that one, and do enjoy this album generally speaking, to be honest. It's a little bit over long, but yeah, decent. Sign of the Cross then. Virtual 11, second album with Blaze. Klansman, Future Real, they're the two best tracks, and a lot of people really love the Klansman, and I don't mind it. I think it's a good song. Obviously they do it now live, maybe not now, but they have done it live with Bruce, but I think I prefer Future Real as a track, so I'm going to go for Future Real on this one. Once again, probably a lot of people will go with the Klansman, and that is absolutely fine. Two different sorts of tracks really, but Future Real I do think is a really good opener and a really good song in general, so I'm going to go for that. The Return of Bruce, Brave New World, lots of good stuff on here. Blood Brothers, for example, the title track. Ghost of the Navigator and Dream of Mirrors probably for me are the best ones, and I think if pushed, it is a tricky one on here. I think Dream of Mirrors would be my favourite, but you know, there's a few that could be sort of called best. Return of Adrian Smith on this one as well, let's not forget. Yeah, good album, consistent all the way through. Tricky choice on this one, but Dream of Mirrors for me. Dance of Death, another good album, lots of good stuff on here, but quite a simple choice for top track. Nothing that is really nearly as good. Honestly, I can't even speak today. Passchendaele is the top one on here for me. Excellent, like lengthy, just a really good riff. Just yeah, brilliant song really. So Passchendaele on Dance of Death. Matter of Life and Death, another strong album all the way through. I'd say it's strong all the way through. There's no super standouts once again, but for me the best track is, actually it's close between For the Greater Good of God and also Reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg. Brighter Than a Thousand Suns, that's really good also. Yeah, lots of good stuff on here, but Benjamin Brieg, Reincarnation of, takes the #1 spot on this album for me. But yeah, really strong album this one, good all the way through. There's no filler on here. It's yeah, really strong album. Final Frontier, another one which is kind of pretty steady all the way through. Some stuff I do really like on here. El Dorado is excellent. Coming Home I really do like as well. Isle of Avalon is a strong contender, and When the Wild Wind Blows also, which is the long track at the end. Yeah, pretty much 11 minutes of that. And I think Isle of Avalon, When the Wild Wind Blows, gonna have to be When the Wild Wind Blows. Super catchy, and yeah, it's got a lot going on. It's a good song, good story in it as well. So yeah, runs Isle of Avalon runs it pretty close, but When the Wild Wind Blows for me is the best one on there. Book of Souls, book form, excellent album. Had this quite high, don't know if it would be as high in my next ranking, but still a lot of good stuff on here. Empire of the Clouds I do really like, which is their longest track they've ever done. I think it's like 18 minutes or something like that. But for me, and I don't think it's particularly close, Red and the Black's actually really good as well, but the Book of Souls itself, the song, I really love. It's got that sort of Power Slave kind of mystical vibe as well, which really hits the spot for me. So Book of Souls, from the Book of Souls, is the best track on this album. And that just takes us up to the present day with Senjutsu. Titles are all in Japanese, but inside they are in English, but I pretty much know which one is going to be on here anyway. Although the last 3 tracks I think are all really good. Death of the Celts, which is the sort of follow-up to the Klansman, which I actually prefer to the Klansman, quite honestly. The Parchment and Hell on Earth, those 3 like really make the album like superb for me. I probably did this one a little bit dirty last time because it was fairly new, but yeah, I've heard it a lot more since then, obviously. But for me, the Parchment, once again, it's got that sort of mystical power slavey vibe on it, and so for me that is the best track on this album. So that was that. A little bit of a distraction before, what have I even got coming up? I've got some new stuff actually to show you, so that'll probably be maybe the next video. And also Rammstein, the ranking of their albums, so that'll be an interesting one also. But I pretty much, yeah, got that almost done and dusted. So yes, that is lots to look forward to if you're a fan of metal and seeing what new CDs I've got, I guess. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the Maiden best track on every Maiden album. Let me know what you think and what your favourites are. Am I close? Am I bang on? Am I way off? Just let me know, man. See what you think. Everyone's got their own taste. So appreciate you watching. Take it steady. Cheers.